Guys, so in this video we are continuing our study of rational exponents. I've got the exponent rules chart already filled in, but you can go back to a previous video. The link is here, but it's also on this channel for how to fill that in. So this is a review of Math 101. I will give you all the formulas, but you do need to know how to use them. So you don't have to have them memorized, but you do need to know how to use these properties. So that this video is just going through some more examples on how to use these exponent properties. So here's my first example. X to the 1/3 power raised then again to the negative 2/3 power. So I just have one variable, but I have two exponents. And so this is going to be my power to a power property. And that says if you've got two little exponents with one big base, that I'm going to multiply those exponents. And so I'm going to multiply 1/3 times negative 2/3. And that is going to give me negative 2/6, or that reduces down to negative 1/3. And so I'm going to have x to the negative 1/3 power. Now I'm not quite done. All of my exponents have to be positive, and that's part of simplifying that. If you have a negative exponent, you do need to make it positive, and the way that I do that is here with this negative exponent rule. So we're using this left side because the negative exponent is currently on top. There is no number, but I could write that as over 1. So what I'm going to do is to make this positive, bring it down to the bottom, and change the sign of the exponent. So using that property, I'm going to have 1 over x to the positive 1/3. And that's going to be my final answer. So to type this into Hawks, you are going to need to use the fraction button first. And then from there, type in your 1 on top. On the bottom, you're going to type in your x. And then to get that exponent, you need to use the button that looks like that under the keypad. That's going to give you an exponent. And then you're going to put your cursor in the exponent and use the fraction button. That's going to then give you the 1/3 exponent. And so when you type it in, you'll have fraction over x exponent, and then you will turn that into a fraction. All right, example 2. Parenthesis 9x to the 3rd, close that parentheses to the negative 1/2 power. So this one is different because now I have two things inside the parentheses. I have a 9 and an x to the 3rd. So I need to use my power of a product because this is a power to a product. 9 times x to the 3rd. So power of product is kind of like our quote-unquote distributive rule, which says that I can give each of these things inside its own exponent. So 9 to the negative 1/2 times x to the 3rd to the negative 1/2. This thing, because this is all numbers, I can type that into my calculator. 9 to the power of parenthesis negative 1 fraction 2. Or you could use your exponent properties to do that. That's going to give you 1 over 3. That second one, x to the third to the negative 1/2. I'm going to multiply those exponents, and that's going to give me x to the negative 3 over 2. Now I've got a negative exponent, and so just like we saw in the last example, to make that negative exponent positive, I'm going to take that thing to the bottom. Well, I don't need to make a new fraction because I already have a denominator. So what I'm going to end up doing is actually taking that down with the 3. So I have 1 over 3. That's that same fraction. But now I'm going to have x to the positive 3 over 2. So I'm taking this whole thing down to the bottom of the fraction and making that positive. And so that is my final answer, 1 over 3x to the 3/2. All right, here's another one. Example 3. Y to the 3/4 times y to the 1/6. So what I've got is two big bases being multiplied. And so I'm going to use my product rule, which product rule says that if you have two big bases being multiplied, I can add the exponents. So I'll have y to the 3/4 plus 1/6. And 3/4 plus 1/6 is going to give me 11/12. Once you simplify it all down, find a common denominator, simplify, or use your calculator. And so my final answer will be y to the 11/12. All right, next one. So we're getting a little bit more difficult. A to the 1/6 times a to the negative 7/2, all divided by a to the negative 5/6. All right, so first thing I've got, all of these have the same basis, but I need to do my product rule and my quotient rule separate. And honestly, it doesn't matter if you do product rule first and add these and then subtract, or if you do quotient rule here and then quotient rule here. Honestly, I would say doing product rule first is easier, so that's the way that I'm going to go. So I'm going to take this numerator, and because those are being multiplied, I'm going to do product rule on the numerator first. So I've got a to the 1/6 times a to the negative 7/12 power. Product rule says that I can add the exponents. So I will have 1/6 plus negative 7/12, or 1/6 minus 7/12. And once I add those and simplify, I get negative 5/12. So that means on top, I'm going to have a to the negative 5/12. And then I still have that denominator, a to the negative 5/6. And then the last thing I'm going to do is my quotient rule, which says quotient rule says that you are going to subtract your exponents. So I'm going to have negative 5/12 minus negative 5/6. Well, minus a negative 5/6. Let me write this. I'm running out of room. I'm going to write it up at the top. Negative 5/12 minus negative 5/6 those would turn to a positive, or you can just type it in exactly like it is. But if you wanted to do it by hand, when you subtract those, you end up with a positive 5/12. So you're going to have a to the 5/12 power. All right, and then example 5. X to the 6 to the 2/3 power times 3x to the 1/2, all to the -2. All right, I got a lot of properties happening. First thing I notice is my parentheses. So I'm going to take care of those parentheses first. So this set of parentheses is actually just a power to a power rule. So I'm going to multiply those. So I've got 6 times 2/3, which is going to give me 4. X to the 4th. Now the second one is a little bit different because it's not just a power rule. I've got two things being multiplied inside. So I've got to, get your highlighter out, I've got to give each of these their own -2. So I first have 3 to the -2 times x to the 1/2 to the -2. Now I have a power to a power rule there, so I can multiply those. And this part I can simplify with the calculator. Or using the exponent properties, of course. You always can do that. So x to the 4th is just going to fall down. I'm not really simplifying that part yet. 3 to the -2 is going to be 1/9. Okay, now I need to deal with that x to the 1/2 to the -2. So 1/2, let me work off to the side, 1/2 times -2 is going to give me -1, which is going to be x to the -1 power. Now you may be tempted to go ahead and move that x to the bottom, and you certainly can. I'm going to go ahead and combine up these x's, and then I will simplify all my negatives at once. And so I mean combine because both of these are the same base. I can use my, product rule. And my product rule says I can add those bases, I can add those exponents. 4 plus -1 is going to give me 3. So I'll have that 1/9 x to the 3rd power. Now I certainly can write it like that, but a little bit better way to write that, because this x is over 1, that really I can write that x over top. So I could write it like this, or you could write it as x to the 3rd over 9. And the way that you would type that into Hawks is going to be x to the 3rd. So first you'll put your fraction in, and then x to the 3rd power on top over the 9. And then that will give you that answer.